Thanks for coming. Welcome. My name is Michael Fuco, Epison Frank, U.O., Season Charles O. I've been a reporter at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette for 36 years, and I'm president of the Newspaper Guild of Pittsburgh, representing 140 journalists at the Post-Gazette. I'm going to make a brief statement. After that, Alexis Johnson will address you, then Michael Santiago, and then our attorneys, father and son, Joe Pass. After that, we will we will take questions and hand out 2 news releases. 1 week ago, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette removed Black journalist Alexis Johnson from covering any protest-related coverage, claiming a clever, insightful tweet showed her bias. The only bias that is being shown is by Pittsburgh Post-Gazette management. Subsequently, they retaliated against 2 staffers who supported Alexis by pulling their stories off of the web, which is a mortal sin in journalism. They then, without explanation, took Michael Santiago off the schedule to cover a protest on Saturday. After that, they did not staff protests with photographers on that Saturday and the next day. We have no idea of what they're doing. We have no idea what their goal is. But during this week of chaos, it's clear to see that the vacuum of leadership, moral authority, and ethics exhibited by Post-Gazette management proves why millions of people are in the streets protesting. Systemic racism exists. Our cause has been supported by U.S. Senator Bob Casey, Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, Pittsburgh Mayor Bill Peduto, and numerous others. Members of the public have spoken out. Within the last 24 hours, they have written over 3,000 letters to management supporting our cause and telling them to stand down and to quit being discriminatory and retaliatory. The debacle at the PG has garnered national exposure from publications and media such as the New York Times, the Washington Post, NPR, The Hill, MSNBC, the Associated Press, and numerous others. This is a national embarrassment to a newspaper that in 2019 received the Pulitzer Prize and this year was a finalist. Today, the Newspaper Guild of Pittsburgh calls upon management of the Post-Gazette to accede to our demands. First, issue an apology to Alexis, Michael, the entire staff, and our readers. 2, rescind your ban and allow Alexis and Michael to cover the most monumental civil rights movement in a lifetime. Number 3, stop retaliating against those who support them. And 4, fulfill your mission by adequately and ethically covering the protests and related issues. Additionally, we are calling upon advertisers, large and small, to contact the Post-Gazette to express their support for the Guild's position and a return to ethical journalism. Only then can we return to covering the news the way we should and stop making the news. That concludes my statement. I'll turn it over now to Alexis.
Hey guys. First, just want to say thank you so much to everyone who has shown support for me, including Guild President Mike Fuco and our Guild Chairman John Silver, who honestly went to bat for me from day one as soon as this became an issue. I never expected to be here in front of you guys today. None of you should be here today. We should all be covering, like Mike said, one of the biggest moments of our generation. And instead, you know, we're here talking about another issue of racism and diversity and discrimination on another level. So I was just very upset and frustrated when I was told that I was taken off of coverage of the protests following the death of George Floyd because of a tweet that I thought was funny. I thought was clever. I thought it was food for thought. I thought it was thought-provoking. When I was told that I violated our social media policy, which in fact doesn't exist, they're just a set of guidelines that the Guild never agreed to, I really did take it personal. I argued, I pushed back, I said I felt like my voice was being silenced. I asked how that tweet showed any opinion or bias, and I never really got a clear answer. But I think, based off the results and where we are today, I think we kind of know what that answer is. And I just can't thank everybody enough for their support. Once again, our Guild members, it was just very, very powerful for, tweeting the tweet in question, and I stand with Alexis. It brought tears to my eyes. It really did, because oftentimes Black people, and especially Black people at work, on the job in corporate America, they don't feel seen or heard when you're speaking out against, when you think you've been discriminated against, or if you think you experience a microaggression. And I think what the Guild has done up until this very point has been an excellent example of what it means to be an ally and to support people of color, and to support people of color at work. And I guess what I'll finally say is, Black journalists have been covering these stories since the beginning of time. Racism is in the fabric of our country, so whether we tweet our sentiments or how we feel, we still have to experience that trauma in real time and then show up to work and be able to report the news fairly and accurately. And, as a Black woman, as a Pittsburgh native, as the daughter of a retired state trooper and a retired probation officer, it's a shame that I wasn't able to bring all of those experiences and my background to cover this story. And it's a shame that those stories won't be told. And really, the real shame here is, the real person being punished, I should say, here is our readers and our public, that they have to watch this play out in real time. And like I said, the fact that all of you are here allocating resources towards this story instead of towards a story that's playing out on a global level. So thank you guys all again for your support, and I appreciate you so much.
Thank you guys for being here. I really don't have much to say because I'm not much of a talker. I'm used to being beside you guys covering stuff like this. And Alexis put everything a whole lot better than I would. I just want to say that I'm disappointed that I'm not out there covering protests. When I put my cameras down and take my press badges off, I'm a Black man in America. Nobody would know that I'm a journalist without that. From the moment that Alexis was pulled from this coverage, I told her I had her back. Just like I said yesterday, I will continue to have her back. And it's disappointing that we're here talking about this instead of what's going on with the protests that are happening right now. And it's sitting at home and seeing how the protests are occurring on Twitter, knowing that should be out there. It's one of the things that's been bothering me the most. I shouldn't be on the sidelines, and I do got to say that I wasn't the only person who was told that they couldn't cover protests. There's one other individual. We both are the only ones who has been told that they can't cover protests. And I personally have yet to hear why. I haven't gotten a reason yet, and I'm still waiting. And it's been 2 days, and I'm still waiting for that answer. It's pretty much all I got to say for now.
Good morning, Joe Pass. I represent the Guild along with our firm, and I think, as everyone here would agree, over the last week we find ourselves in the eye of a national moment. You of all people respect and understand that. The most important thing, I think, in our view, representing these fine professional journalists, is to make sure we have a diversified view of the news that we cover. And I was always taught that the fourth pillar of democracy is free press and journalism. That's all of you folks and these fine people behind me. That the actions taken by the Post-Gazette, pulling these individuals who, by the way, you could not find anyone more qualified. With Alexis, as she said, she's born and raised here in Pittsburgh. She has a master's in journalism. Her family, her father is a retired state trooper. Her mother is a retired probation officer in the county. Who better to bring those views to our community? There are scarcely few people who are more qualified than she. Same thing with Mr. Santiago. He won a Pulitzer Prize for his coverage of Tree of Life. Yet, Post-Gazette has pulled them from coverage. It's appalling. How are we to reconcile that? All we're asking for, this is a simple solution. As Mike said, apologize, put these folks back to work. The other point I'd like to make is with respect to the solidarity that's been shown to the Guild. The second level of injustice created by the Post-Gazette, they took all those Guild members off the stories. They cut their nose off to spite their face just to prove a point. We're not going to cover it all. What responsible journalism does that? You just don't do that. So as a result, we're asking you, until and unless this gets rectified, we're asking the community to say, look, if you're sponsoring this, if you're advertising with this newspaper, is that really the mission that you want to put your money behind? Think about that. We're asking you to consider that when you view what these folks have endured. So that's why we're here. We're trying to expose this for what it is. And I appreciate everything they do. They're Pulitzer Prize journalists, and they just want to do their job. They're professionals. That's all. Thank you.
I would just lend a few words. I have been representing the Guild for 5 decades now. I have never seen the Post-Gazette act as they are today. Never. 5 decades. And I'm talking about the reason being they brought in a union-busting law firm from down in Tennessee who is mantle is to have domination. It's their way or no way. Like my son said, there are not 2 better journalists than these 2. One was part of the Pulitzer Prize, the other, Alexis, is more than qualified. The only reason she isn't because of the color of her skin. And that can't go on. That has to stop. It has to stop, and it has to stop now. And we call upon our advertisers, those who pay the bills, to bring heat on this company back with us. And tell them, if they're not going to rectify this situation, then they don't have to see their dollars. That's the only thing I think they'll ever understand. Thank you.
We'll take questions. Yes.
Alexis and Michael, can you guys talk about the language that management used when you were contacted about no longer about being open?
Yeah, I was told that the tweet about Kenny Chesney and comparing the mess that the concert goers leave behind, or making people think about it in context with the looting. I was told it violated our social media policy. They kept calling it an educational conversation, but there was no warning. There was no, hey, can you take the tweet down? By Monday morning, they had decided that I was no longer able to cover it. And what was sad was I never got the chance to, because they started Saturday to protest. Sunday, I sent the tweet. By Monday morning, they had pulled the plug on me. So they just, I pushed back. Like I said before, I kept asking, can you please explain to me how this tweet shows an opinion or shows any bias? And they said that it implied bias, and my opinion came through the tweet, and that the credibility of the newsroom would be called into question if they were to put my byline on any story there going forward. So that was their stance, and they stuck to it.
Alexis, you said you thought the tweet was funny and clever.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to people that are also not happy about that tweet? Say it's insensitive. One person on Twitter said, yeah, it's exactly the same thing as looting and beating people.
That's fine, but that's kind of what our job is to call together these conversations and call together these viewpoints and have people think about different sides of an issue. So I'm sure that they have their side, and I didn't even show a side. I was just, I'm glad that conversation is being had on social media, because that is what our job is to get people to think critically about situations and get people to think critically about other people's perspectives.
And they didn't take it down? They didn't tell you to take it down or anything?
They never told me to take it down and never gave me a warning about it. I pitched a couple stories when I came in Monday. Like I said before, I'm a black woman. I live in Pittsburgh. Those are my friends. That was my community. Those are my family members out there protesting all weekend long. And I had gathered a bunch of stories that I thought needed to be told. And I pitched them on Monday and was told to hold off until they spoke with me. And they didn't talk to me until the end of my shift, quite frankly, and told me why I hadn't heard from them all.
Sorry, Michael, do you want to respond to my question?
Yeah, as I said before, I haven't heard from... I'm sorry. As I said before, I haven't heard from management about why I was taken off. I got a phone call on Friday from a co-worker, and all she said was that I was off, and if I had any issues with it, to just reach out to our editors. And at that point, I immediately called John Silver, and I let him handle it. But as I said, I haven't heard from any management and given any reason why I was taken off.
Can you talk about what efforts you've made to try, I mean, you know, are you talking face to face, are you emailing? Obviously, I know you want to be on the coverage here, and you said you haven't heard back in the last 2 days. Can you just talk about what you've done to try and get a reason or an explanation?
Yeah, I haven't had any issues throughout all week until Friday, so I never really had any, I didn't feel that I had any need to ask why I wasn't covering any protests. And because of what was happening with Alexis, and I knew that there was a grievance filed, I immediately just referred it to the union, and I let them handle it.
Are you the only black photojournalist on staff?
No, but there's Nate Pedring. He's on staff also.
I can add that the company, since this happened, and since we spoke to them in a conference call, that increasingly on their side became antagonistic and defensive. Since then, not word one. And if you look at any of the coverage of this horrible situation, they're declining comment. So none of us know what's going on. They're not telling any of our staff. The only person who was told that she was being taken off of any coverage was Alexis. They said that was because she showed bias. Other than that, all these other things that have transpired subsequent to that, we have no idea because nobody's talking to us.
And what other reporters have been affected by this? You said that there was a third reporter. Is that Ashley you're talking about?
No, there were two people who. Ashley Murray wrote a story about City Council discussing police brutality. Lauren Lee wrote a story that day about a protest that day. Both of them filed their stories. They were fine, apparently. They were put on the web. And then those two reporters tweeted the same tweet that Alexis did. And we found out that their stories were pulled off of the web, which, as I said, is a mortal sin in journalism. Once you publish something, you can put a correction or a clarification. You cannot take it down. So they pulled it like it never existed. And the next morning, because there was a public outcry about this, they put on two stories without their bylines that some manager had rewritten.
Were Ashley and Lauren told about this?
Nobody, as I said, the only person who's been talked to about the issue at all was Alexis. Subsequent to that, no discussion, no explanation, nothing.
And when you say they, are you talking about current team?
Yes, management. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Can you talk about them still writing stories but not using any photographers at all?
There were protests on Saturday. We used wire photos, and we had our photographers covering a bike swap, a story about bees, and I forget what the third, and ice cream, selling of ice cream. When again, the most monumental story was happening in Point State Park and on Mount Washington, and our photographers, for whatever reason, were not used. That was yesterday. On Saturday, there were protests. Again, didn't use our photographers as they normally would, and used wire photos. So, with no explanation, no reason either to us, the public, or anybody. It's just, if they're hardening their stance, they need to know that we are not backing down from this fight. We are going to fight this and fight this and fight this. We have allies across the country in journalism, in politics, in social justice, in racial justice, are all coming to our aid and our support. The Post-Gazette is on the wrong side of history. We are on the right side of history. We have a responsibility to fight for our members. We need to fight for non-discrimination, equality, and journalistic ethics. And we're going to continue to do that until this is resolved. A resolution is within their hands. It's easy. Apologize, reinstate, stop retaliation, and have ethical journalism. That's easy.
Do you actually think they're going to do that? I mean, they've been not pulling journalists off of coverage like this before, but they continually ignore contract rules, it seems. And what does the fight look like going forward? Is it pleading? Is it like, it seems like they actually have no legal consequences, right?
Well, I think the consequences, maybe people will, I don't know. I mean, I think that they are damaging our brand immensely and nationally. They're damaging the brand of a Pulitzer Prize winning newspaper, Pulitzer Prize finalist, quality journalism. I'm so proud to work with so many talented journalists, and the fact that they are picking this fight with us for no reason does not speak well for their ethics, for their inclusion. We have so few black journalists, so few, less than 10%. The population of Pittsburgh, this area is 22%. So we don't even represent that if everybody's working. But they're taking off at least 2 black journalists whose experience in life can find the nuance, can relate to why people are in the streets, and they should want to capitalize upon that. That's why you hire diversity, so you can get all points of view, different lived experiences. And for them to thumb their nose at that, to me, I can only look at it as racial discrimination. Prove me wrong and put them back on this coverage.
Michael and Alexis, prior to this happening, would you say the Post-Gazette and the newsroom is a welcoming place for black journalists and black photojournalists?
I can only speak to my experience, and I personally have never had a bad interaction personally with these managers. So that's why I was so shocked when they called me and said those things to me. And I was really shocked, and like I keep saying, I was really pushing back. It wasn't a quick conversation. I asked a lot of questions. I asked them to prove their side. I said to them, I feel like you're silencing me as a black reporter on this moment. So, as far as welcoming, I guess you can look at the stats of how many people work here that are of color or that are black to kind of answer that question, but I can only answer from my personal experience. I never felt targeted before this moment. So.